It is highly unlikely that there is only one pre-Clovis archaeological site in any given regional or local area. If there is one pre-Clovis archaeological site in a regional area, there may be numerous pre-Clovis sites in that area that have not yet been discovered or reported. I say there may be because early humans traveled across the land. There is no evidence of people flying around from place to place during the Pleistocene. People traveled on foot. They stopped and camped, and they spent time hunting, gathering, fishing, birthing, dying, and living on their way to and between areas. People did not fall out of a plane and land at a specific area where we know there is a Pleistocene archaeological site. They traveled to the area on foot. To listen to archaeologists in denial of Pleistocene sites with older than Clovis dates, you would be led to believe that people had magically arrived there without leaving any trace of their travels and then mysteriously disappeared. Many indigenous communities were written into extinction through archaeological stories of disappearing cultures and people. Large communities of people do not just disappear. They may leave one location for numerous reasons, such as drought, conflict with neighboring groups, environmental change, and catastrophic events. Humans evolve and adapt cultural practices. In discussing indigenous communities as having mysteriously disappeared, archaeologists erase them from the land and create a scenario of questionable ancestral links to contemporary indigenous people. When indigenous communities are discussed as having disappeared, it seems they were magical. Indigenous people just disappeared from the landscape without a trace at the exact date the archaeologists conjured up for their story. Or as my sister Carrie Wilson, a Quapaw tribal NAGPRA representative, told me, "It's like archaeologists think we were dropped off by little green men from a spaceship, like we just fell out of the sky right before the French arrived." Quapaw towns such as Kappa, Turuma, and Osutoi were well established when Europeans first arrived, and Quapaw communities flourished along the western side of the Mississippi River in the area we now know as Arkansas. In 1998, when I was a student at the University of Arkansas at Fayetteville, the Quapaw tribe was denied NAGPRA cultural affiliation in their efforts to repatriate ancestral remains from their traditional territories. This changed due to a great deal of hard work and perseverance by Carrie Wilson and the Quapaw tribal elders. The repatriation work was supported in part through research that the Quapaw asked me to consider, and that I carried out with the support of a Student Undergraduate Research Fellowship, SURF. Out of respect for the Quapaw, I will not further discuss this research here. The project was reported in my undergraduate honors research thesis. The Quapaw were successful in their NAGPRA claim and repatriated and reburied hundreds of their ancestors. The archaeological sites I discuss in this chapter represent many ancestral communities that are directly related to contemporary indigenous people. The connections between ancient and contemporary people will be further discussed in Chapter 7. Disappearing Indian stories are prevalent in American archaeological and historical literature. It is important to remember, however, that even though indigenous people are the world champions at hide and seek, people do not just disappear or become extinct. Indigenous people left their stories on the land, and they left hints of their travels to new areas. When people are facing danger and aggression from hostile groups or, as in the case of the European invasion of the Western Hemisphere, facing genocide, they often flee their traditional territories and hide to survive. In discussing the fallacies of unsupported archaeological stories of disappearing Indians and the indigenous past, Vine Deloria Jr. and other indigenous scholars and their like-minded peers have carried out the critical work of challenging archaeological conjecture embedded as truth in historical and educational literature.